The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to share his inheritance with me." Jesus replied to him, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbiter?" Then he said to the crowd, "Take care to guard against all greed. For though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions." Then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He said to himself, "What shall I do? I do not have space to store my harvest." And he said, "This is what I shall do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I shall store all my grain and other goods. And I shall say to myself, now as for you, you have many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this night your life will be demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, to whom will they belong? Thus it will be for all who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich in what matters to God." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. No, now I'm on. I knew I didn't sound right. As I said, this is a berry spoon. In Victorian times, it was used to ladle out berries onto people's dessert plates. In modern times, they still make them. This is a modern one. And they're basically used as fancy serving spoons. This one is very cheap. Someone gave this to me. It's probably worth $20, $30 maybe. I've seen them, however, real antique berry spoons from Victorian times can go as much as $600 or $700. They can be a real treasure. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Do not be rich in possessions, but be rich in what God wants us to have. I went to visit a woman, an elderly woman in a nursing home once. And as I got to her room, I heard a loud argument going on inside the room. And as I opened the door to go in, I heard her say to the person who was with her, "I will never forgive you, and I never, ever want to see you again in my life." And as I walked in, an elderly gentleman brushed past me and left. When I went in, the woman was in tears. And I sat down with her for quite a while, and we had a long talk, and she told me what had happened. That gentleman was her brother, her only living relative. And he had come in and began to accuse her of taking more things from her mother's estate, from their mother's estate, than she deserved. And what finally got him was the berry spoon. "You stole mother's berry spoon, and I want it." 40 years of anger that he had held came out on that day as he yelled at her. Finally, she was so aggravated, she said to him, "I can never forgive you for what you said to me. Leave this room, and I never want to see you again." She said to me in tears, "It's my spoon. My mother wanted me to have it. She gave it to me. I don't understand how he can hate me like that." Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. We've all seen stories in the newspapers. Maybe we've even experienced it ourselves. The fights that take place over people's inheritance. The lawsuits that goes on because you got more than I got from mom or from dad or from Uncle Harry or Aunt Matilda or whatever. Nobody's ever satisfied. As Koheleth says in the first reading, you didn't work for it, but you think you deserve it anyway. And what about you who worked for this, all of this great treasure? Where does it go? To ungrateful people who've never worked for it. Now, admittedly, Koheleth's entire look on life was a tad on the depressed and pessimistic side. If you read the whole book of Koheleth, you'll begin to see that. But he's right. I've experienced it in my life. When I was pastor in another parish, the church was sued by another church because some lady left money to like 5 different churches, and this other church thought that the 4 other churches got too much money and they weren't getting their fair share. So believe it or not, this one church sued the other 4 churches to get what they thought was their fair share.